Harrison Price for Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. And this show, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. We got a big show planned for you in front of what should be a spicy hockey game tonight from the Alberta capital. More on that in a moment, but we'll start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Would beating the Edmonton Oilers tonight be a statement win for the Vancouver Canucks? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Some people are understanding statement in the replies. Yes. Some are not.
If you're replying, you have to acknowledge that you get the joke, first of all, please. Can you? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it just makes us feel like we're like, is this thing on? Is this? And then secondly, yes, you can answer it a little bit more literally in terms of, is there a message from the Canucks to their coach, to their managers?
Mm-hmm. Well, consecutive wins would be a statement, given how few and far between.
This isn't consecutive, though. This is consecutive wins against the Oilers,
that's right,
with a lowly Buffalo effort in between.
We've wiped that from the memory banks.
Which, you can make the argument, isn't that quintessentially the Canucks? Like zag when zigging, zigging when zagging. Like it just.
I voted no because I voted literally. I just hope there are fans out there ready to help the Canucks through the process if they lose.
See, if they lose, you put out a statement, and we'll pledge to help the Canucks through the process.
And here's the other thing: we are deprived of seeing the best player in the world tonight because of his suspension, which would have been a very nice do-si-do beside arguably the greatest goal scorer of all time, who was here on Saturday, in Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule.
And
remember, the Capitals are good too now. Like they're very good. It's a good team.
That's the league.
Yeah.
The other thing, and we say this usually when Sydney comes through town too, there are only so many more opportunities, right, to see these guys live in the flesh. They make one trip to Vancouver annually. And if everything goes to Hoyle for Alex Ovechkin in about a couple of months, we'll be talking about him as the one of the once unbreakable record, many thought, for Wayne Gretzky's career goals. So anyways, we'll talk about the Capitals game tomorrow. You voted yes or you voted no?
No, it's not a statement win.
No.
As we've seen from some already in the chat, Campers 15, statement wins are over. We need statement streaks.
How about statement playoff series? That would be a statement.
Yeah.
Beat them in a playoff series? That is a statement. How about this from Surrey Mitsubishi? They understand. Some of you have been turned down for financing. Well, they have a special program exclusively for Sekeres and Price audience members. They have assigned Jessica, a dedicated representative who is committed to getting you approved through the in-house financing program. She's going to assist, get you approved, bad credit, negative equity on your current card. Jessica is going to apply the special program for you. Do everything possible to make sure you are approved. Email Jessica at surreymitsubishi.com. Make sure you mention Sekeres and Price. Some conditions apply. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Dad is disappointed, and cousin one province over is Big Matt as the Canucks take on the Oilers in Edmonton, the rematch from Saturday night, which saw some fireworks at the end of the game. Connor McDavid, Tyler Myers, both missing this game with suspension. And Connor Garland set to be public enemy number 1 at Rogers Place in the Alberta capital. Rick Tocchet, after practice yesterday, said the loss to Buffalo, blowing the 2-1 lead, losing 3-2 to a team that was on the second of back-to-backs and had full-on practiced in the morning, was the most disappointing loss since he's been there. Since he's been here. He said he mentioned that to the team in the morning and was curious about the reaction that he was going to see. He also said he thought they had a bad practice going into that Buffalo game. So here's Coach from this morning in Edmonton. He is most excited for a rematch against a heated rival.
Yeah, I'm glad we're playing this, especially after our Buffalo game. I think we need this. You got to play 82 games, but you got to embrace it as a player. You want to play in these games. You want to play in a heated rival. Like, who wants to play in a, non-hit back in a nothing game? Like, those games suck. April, you're out of the playoffs. I mean, these are the games you play hockey for. Like, this is a great game to coach, a great game to play.
They did this on Saturday. Is the challenge here? So I understood the Saturday win. I thought the logo of the Oilers was going to be a smelling salt for the team to some degree. I didn't know that they'd win, but I knew they'd be competitive in that game because of the logo. Problem is they just saw the logo. Does the logo? Remember, McDavid and the Oilers have manufactured the slight here. They're fighting.
No, there's a real slight there. There should have been a holding penalty, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But they've been really aggrieved here.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have the league to blame as much as
the Canucks. I mean, they're just trying to hold the ground. Like, they're just like, we didn't really do much here. We held the guy. They can get caught with their feet flat here. That's the risk.
I'm going to take the bait on this one, as you'll hear later in our Bet365 bets of the day. But Joshua comes back from cancer surgery. No emotional level up from the Canucks. Demko comes back after 2 months off. No real emotional level up. Jonathan Lekremaki, called up from the farm, scores a beautiful goal. Young kid, yeah, great. First NHL goal. Yeah, no emotional leveling up. They won the Miller comeback game.
Besser, no.
Yeah, but they no. Not the Besser comes back from the concussion, but they haven't really shown us that they are a rise to the occasion. No. Yeah, we have external motivators. Let's go out, and as Frank Corrado told us yesterday, just play bleeping hockey. So it's Thatcher Demko versus Calvin Pickard tonight in the Oiler goal.
By resume, my goodness, that's an advantage for the Vancouver Canucks, but the resume doesn't tell the tale.
You'll remember we saw Pickard in the playoff series last year, right?
He did fine out of the circumstances.
And this is 4 straight starts for Thatcher Demko. Lankinen is still feeling the effects of that virus that was going around Rogers Arena. So he's going to back up, but they're going to hold him out at least one more. Thatcher has not started 4 consecutive games since coming back from his injury. But both the general manager, Patrick Allvin, and Rick Tocchet have talked about, want to see more of Demko here, time to get him on a roll. This is, and of course he played on Saturday as well against these Oilers. This will be a test. It's not the same test, missing Connor McDavid, but needless to say, the Oilers still have some offensive firepower. And minus McDavid, Miller did such a great job in a hard match against McDavid at even strength on Saturday. I would suspect you're going to see JT Miller head-to-head with Leon Draisaitl. If you don't have to worry about McDavid, right, time to hard match JT with Leon. And frankly, I sometimes feel like when JT gets that sort of challenge against a top centerman around the league, that's when we see the best of him. It's kind of when he doesn't have that pure mano a mano, okay, we're going to throw you out. When he's playing just run-of-the-mill centers from around the National Hockey League, that's when I find he sort of loses his attention span.
Well,
to the defensive side of the puck.
Traditionally, I would say that he's one of the guys that does rise to the occasion. Now, this year, I don't know that anybody deserves to have that moniker. I don't think many have. But traditionally, JT Miller has seen big moments and looked him square in the eye. And I think part of that is his assignments on nights like this, where he's up against one of the best in the world and says, well, I'm one of the best in the world. Why?
Yeah,
so
LFG.
Let's do this. So I think it's a little neutering for the Canucks trade propositions, because I think in these moments, a head coach thinks, if I don't get anything out of JT, but he also shuts down Leon Draisaitl, that's a win for me. Mm-hmm. In this case, I think a couple of points for JT Miller would probably look pretty good right now, and a sign that he's coming out of it. I mean, he has a couple of good games. He's right back on a point per game, and I think that player becomes a heck of a lot easier to trade than the guy who's below a point per game right now. So that's the downside.
Now,
serving two masters here a little bit.
Of course, one of the big problems for the Vancouver Canucks has not been the overall performance of JT Miller. I mean, he's still nearly a point per game player. He's the second leading scorer. It's getting good games from a larger number of skaters, namely Elias Pettersson. We've talked about it. One game this year where both Elias and JT put up multi-point efforts, and it extends beyond those two. So here's Coach Tocchet saying he needs more from a number of players.
He talked about good game, bad game, good. Like you have to have consistency in your game. That's urgency. We need a little bit more urgency from people. We know that, but we got to stop saying it. Now it's action, right? And we know that there's 5 feet out there that we can get, and we have to demand that 5 feet. I think that's really in our game. There's a lot of good stuff that's happened, but there's a lot of stuff that obviously that's self-inflicted that we got to turn the tables on. So there's no, you got to start tonight. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, how about that second period against Buffalo? A period like that to start tonight. Mm-hmm. Because the bookends in that game were egregious.
2 of those periods is probably enough to win the hockey game. If you have 2 of those second periods, you probably win most hockey games.
So, Connor Garland, he knows he'll play the villain, the Black Hat, tonight in Edmonton. Asked about it yesterday after practice, says, I do not care. I just try to play each and every day and put forth a good effort.
No contraction, by the way. I do not care.
Yeah.
Formal English here.
Exactly. I, period, do, period.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt him or slew foot him. I guess they're upset about the hold. I didn't try to injure him. Whatever comes with that, comes with that. And then Tocchet had the zinger of the day. Yeah, he held a guy. So is that a wanted poster?
The hold heard around the world. Honestly. It was a hold.
Now, of course, we know Connor Garland is itty-bitty. And just about anyone on that Oilers bench, if they took a run at him, it would be a little bit of a pick on someone your own size. Kiefer Sherwood saying we'll have each other's backs, and no matter what happens, we stick together. There's going to be extra passion and emotion. You love that. We said it all of last year as the Canucks and then later the Oilers, following that 18-game winning streak or whatever it was, found themselves right near the top of the league standings. Edmonton made a late push. Vancouver was able to hold on for the Pacific Division. Neither won the President's Trophy, but they both finished near the top of the league standings. And of course, Vancouver won all the regular season games last year. Edmonton got goalied a little bit. There was great energy, enthusiasm, passion in some of those regular season games last year. And then we got a 7-game playoff series that went right down to the end. And so, setting aside the events of Saturday night and whatever kind of retribution, revenge, storyline you want to put on tonight's proceedings, it is fantastic to have a rivalry back with another Canadian, Western Canadian foe. It has been too long for the Vancouver Canucks between rivalries with other Canadian-based teams. You've got to go a ways back to find the temperature of the Flames-Canucks rivalry at high ebb. And as we talked about last year heading into that playoff series, you had to go even further back to find any kind of Vancouver-Edmonton postseason encounter. Look, the rivalries with Chicago, Boston were great while they lasted, but this is the real McCoy. You know, these are the sorts of games that bring in the casual viewers for across our country, right?
Well, and they are a bit of a litmus test here on, like, if you are in that room, if you're a player in that room, and you still believe in your gut, God, we are a playoff team, though. Like, we're a good team. Just something.
And I think they do, Blake. Like, I don't think anybody in that room thinks, oh, you know, it's going to be tough to make the playoffs. Everything they have to go right. No, players don't think that way.
No, but if they think that you don't need to make any changes, God, if they just let us play. Well, if you don't look good in games like this one tonight, like how? And again, you can't win every game. If there's a transcendent performance by an Oiler and it leads to an Oiler victory, sometimes that happens. There's another team out there. But you got to look competitive. You got to look like you're in the fight at the very least. And so many nights this year, the Canucks have not even looked like that. And that's what Rick Tocchet has been talking about, is not only did you lose the game, you're going to lose games. Everybody does. But how do you do it? And they have done it in the worst ways this season. So, you know, I think they can win tonight's game for sure. I think it's possible. But as much as anything, are you in this game? Like, do you have a pulse? Do you actually still believe? Do you know how to bring and elevate your game?
Blake, I think there's almost, and notwithstanding what we just talked about in some of these comeback games, but after the events of Saturday, after the events of Tuesday against Buffalo, after what Tocchet said, with the specter of people going at, you know, the smallest guy on the team, I think there is very little chance that the Vancouver Canucks aren't engaged in this game. Now, that's a very good hockey team over there. Will they be competitive through three periods? That's not something that I can say with certainty. But I have to think that the fire burns bright tonight for the Canucks.
It's sad that it takes that, if that is the case. Like,
yep.
there was actually a bigger game last week against the LA Kings.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Like, that's a bigger
That's your derby
game
right now. It's not Edmonton. It's LA.
So that one you're down 3-0 in 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So great that they get up for this because of the playoffs and the fact that it's the Oilers and it's fun to take on the best players in the world and McDavid and Draisaitl. In this case, just Draisaitl. But my goodness, you need to bring that a little bit more often, and in the games that are truly mattering to you, like the one versus LA.
Well, you're 11 back of Edmonton with a game in hand. Even if you get tonight, it's kind of a telescope thing. You'd have to get really hot, and that's a team that I just don't think is going to give too many points back the rest of the way.
But that's also not a juggernaut team. They'll skid eventually.
Well, I mean, it's conceivable, but I think Edmonton and Vegas are.
But Vegas has lost 5 in a row. Like,
but they've lost 5 in a row, and you're still 12 points back of them. So I think the reality is that Vegas and Edmonton are probably too far gone here at this point. That they're going to be, and LA's still in there too, but that they're going to be the 2 top seeds in the Pacific Division, and you're hoping that you get hot enough to close this 7-point gap with the LA Kings. Could be a 9-point gap because the Kings have a game in hand, and are able to slide in to a Pacific Division playoff spot and not just a wild card. LA and Calgary are your 2 direct competitors right now.
You know that I'm a goal differential.
I know you are. And it is not pretty for the Canucks.
Up until the 6-1-5-1 double dip, they were a single-digit goal diff in the negative, but single-digit. And you know what? The single-digit negative, it's explainable. A couple of bad losses can sway in that direction. but I think you have the potential to show yourself as a good team still. Canucks are now minus 15. The Blues and Utah behind them are in single digits, and even Seattle way behind them in terms of just placings are only minus 11. Again,
and
pretty soon you're going to have to win a couple of games by multiple goals, too. I'm not saying that's tonight necessarily, but wouldn't it be nice to see the Canucks get a 4-1 victory every now and then?
A victory where you can put it on cruise control in the third. And I should add St. Louis and Utah to the Derby category, the direct competitor category, because it's not just looking up; it's looking behind you as well.
Yeah.
Those teams have agency, and in fact, those teams have agency, and in fact, the Canucks are going to play in St. Louis next week. As a matter of fact, on Monday,
and those teams have stats that could tell you that they're actually better than you.
Mm-hmm. What are our friends at Yellow Dog Neighborhood up to this week?
They've got fabulous new beers, new mix packs to tell you about as well. And we can tell you right now that they've got the Foolish Wine website up and running as well for you to join the wine club. Foolishwine.com, new releases, the wine club, events, and more. And they'll show the boisterous side of wine. They don't take themselves too seriously at Foolish Wine. They love their wine, but they do it with a wink, with a brewery mentality, shall we say. So leave the pretentiousness at the door and join the Foolish Wine Club.
Elliot Friedman reporting that the New York Rangers and Carolina Hurricanes are the two teams that have permission to talk to JT Miller's camp as trade discussions continue. And people are now arriving at the conclusion that the New York Rangers are putting the screws to Vancouver after this trade that the Canucks thought was done on the weekend fell apart. Elliott now reporting that Ryan Lindgren was not involved in that trade in the package, that it was Filipino, the young center, mid-20 centerman, a first-round pick, and a prospect. And yes, the Rangers held some prospects out of their AHL game that day. Then effectively, this is the Rangers signaling JT Miller at our price and not a player or a dollar more. And so it's incumbent, if that's the case, on Patrick Allvin, and Lawrence Gilman was terrific on this yesterday, saying, no, if you've got 3 or 4 teams in there, that is market enough to be able to come out with a good deal for JT Miller. Pierre LeBrun reporting that the New Jersey interest in Miller is maybe not at the same level of Carolina and the Rangers. That would stand to reason if they don't have permission to talk to Miller's camp. And the Devils have now lost goaltender ex-Canuck Jacob Markstrom in what looked like a terrible injury last night for Markey. I see our friends at Canucks Army, David Quadrelli, are asking, should the Canucks trade Lankinen? Is New Jersey, if they get bad news on Markstrom,
the first thing I thought of.
Is that a move you make even while you're still in a playoff race? Does it have to be an offer you can't refuse sort of thing from the Devil to make the deal with the Devils?
Which is a great way to say it.
I screwed it up the first time.
As soon as the injury happened, I was almost going to tweet about that, but I was like, I'm not going to stomp on the grave here just yet of Jacob Markstrom. And we still don't have. Do we have any word on exactly the seriousness of the injury? I don't think we do.
Not that I last saw, but I can look that up for you.
Let's go through the exercise that it's a serious injury. The goaltending market has not been great over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and you don't have a lot of rentals there.
No. So I think you'd be stupid not to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, they want to make a package deal, Miller and Lankinen.
Mm-hmm.
Things could get interesting there.
Yeah.
If I'm a Canucks fan, the Devils are my ideal trade partner.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to look at a player that has the most upside that may be able to shake free, it's Nemitz. So to me, you're making that call and checking in.
Yeah. Sheldon Keefe said Markstrom will miss some time. Dr. Gruel, who's a good follow at harjazz_Gruel on X, who looks at these injuries with a doctor's eye, and he's thinking MCL sprain is week. He said it's hard to tell with goaltender injuries, but if it's an MCL sprain, week to week. If it's a torn meniscus, 4 to 6 weeks. For a trim, 4+ months for a repair, and of course, if it's torn ACL, then Jacob Markstrom probably misses the balance of this season unless New Jersey gets to, say, a conference final, a Stanley Cup final, and even then.
And the Devils are still in good shape points-wise right now, but they have 2 wins in their last 10 games. And they can't afford to stumble that much more. The wild card teams are 6 points back of them right now.
Yeah.
But they played way more games than everybody. I think they're maybe the most games in the league right now, 49. Sharks are at 50.
Yeah. LeBron also saying there are other teams interested in Miller that haven't been reported yet.
But how much of that is looky-loos, right? How much of that
well,
is tire
I
kickers?
think you have all sorts of tire kickers here because they view it as a predatory situation where the Vancouver Canucks are going to move Miller for
We'll win a
less
trade.
than market value. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put this out there just because I've been thinking. JT Miller grew up in the Pittsburgh area. Someone reminded me recently he got drafted by the Rangers and wore a Penguins jersey or shirt or hat thereafter. Like he was that big a fan at one point. And the reporting is that Pittsburgh is a little bit more inclined to fire sale now than anything else. But he is under term. And we've talked about it before. Can you do a tear-down rebuild while Sydney is still there? Or are you going to, like the Vancouver Canucks, wait until your legacy players, and in this market's case, the Sedins are gone, before entertaining that? So I just wonder, because I do think Miller would waive for Pittsburgh. And
who's coming the other way?
Well, it's not Sydney. I'd love it to be Sydney.
Right. Okay. I was just making sure of that.
Well, answer me this. You better off with Miller or Malkin now, if you're Pittsburgh. Malkin's 6-1 this year and next year.
And then he's done.
And he's got the no move.
I mean, you're a better team with Miller, I think. But
Malkin's 9 goals, 34 points in 45 games this year. He slipped to 67 in a full 82-game season last year. He was down 16 points from his previous season, despite playing the exact same amount of minutes per night.
yeah, so the end is nigh here.
But that gets the Vancouver Canucks their first or second line center, right? That they want back.
Well,
and
and
JT Miller, that gets you in at a actual cap savings because Miller's making 8 and Malkin's making 6-1. And it gets you out of a player at the end of next year. So it matches your competitive window with Demko and Hughes under contract as well.
yeah, you'd have to start to formulate a second line center plan beyond that.
For sure. But that's better than formulating having that plan thrust upon you immediately right now.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I like Dawson Mercer in New Jersey, and maybe he can play center. But if he can't, adding wingers when you don't have the centermen to get the best out of them is a risky proposition in and of its own right. Anyways, like I said, I just putting that out there. Especially since, needless to say, Alvin, Rutherford, Tocchet have deep history in the Penguins organization. And speaking of Tocchet, an interesting quip yesterday when he said he had to be careful not to spend too much time on the drama and coach the team in its entirety. which could very well be another hint. And we've been wondering how much is Tocchet messaging upstairs these days about, guys, can we just get this over? Can we just move on? Can you just end this distraction so that the guys in that room can fully focus on playing and winning games?
That was from
the Vancouver
Oilers
Canucks.
media. And Vancouver media have asked him, too, like how much of has the drama been a distraction? He's given a different answer than he gave to the Oilers media, which was, well, I've got to remember there's other guys that need, I'm got to remember I can't just be on one guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems he feels there's been extra shepherding needed around that storyline, and he's got to coach the rest of the team. So has it been a distraction? I think he's just admitted it as much.
Well, and one more thing on just JT to Pittsburgh. Of course, he can't walk into that room
And be the man.
Or be getting on, guys.
No.
Right?
No.
Like, there's an established culture there.
Yeah.
It is set by Sidney Crosby. Hockey god. You fall in line, son. And that would be, I think, one of the few rooms in the NHL where JT walks in pretty humble. Tail between legs, not looking to rattle a single cage.
Chris Letang. There's.
But mostly Sidney.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson, defenseman, and Linus Karlsson were both recalled. Pettersson will not play tonight.
Ooh.
So we await his NHL debut. Karlsson has a chance. Tocchet said he would decide on Karlsson later. We foreshadowed that with Karlsson, not only having a terrific recent spin here in the AHL where Abbotsford won 6 straight games and he was a major offensive contributor, but also because of the way that Tocchet has talked about him earlier in the season.
He's the points per game leader
some of his
down
boards,
there too.
like some of his board work. And he's the all-time leading scorer too for the Abbotsford Canucks career points. Then there's Elias Pettersson. And remember when JT took his leave of absence in November. And the next day players commented on it, and Elias was asked, and he said, yeah, we all got something going on. Now, I sort of perceived in the intervening weeks, I've perceived that as, well, yeah, I've got something going on too, and that is the JT's a royal pain.
Mm-hmm.
This from the Hockey News. Pettersson is involved in a real estate nightmare. He was working with a broker to purchase a luxury villa north of Stockholm, put down a deposit on the home, and, quote, it turned out that the house had many flaws that needed to be fixed, his father told a local newspaper. It was a deposit worth about $240,000 US. The broker is now in jail for fraud on another matter, and it sounds like that money is lost. Now, at $11.6 million, obviously,
I think he'll be okay.
He's going to be okay. But, many have said they have problems off the ice as well.
Yeah, nobody likes to lose $350K, no matter how much money they make.
Yeah, well, not to mention you have to want how much time is he spending on this away from the rink, right? Is he on the phone with lawyers and things like that back in Sweden? Anyways.
Also, because he's been aggrieved here. It's not like he made an investment and the company went under and there goes my $350K. It was effectively stolen from him.
Right.
And that occupies a little more emotion than I think anything else. So,
yeah. At the end of this season, as much as we're having discussions about Rick Tocchet, his future, the mutual option on his contract, will he get an extension? Does he even want to coach? Does he want to coach this group, or does he want to just go somewhere where the players are a little more mature and get along better, or at least work professionally together? But also the composition of his bench. We talked a little bit earlier this week, last week. Kane. There's no Mike Yeo there. Yogi Svechkovsky has been promoted. We're actually going to talk to Patrick Johnston about Sergei Gonchar. Donde es Gonchar?
That's where it is.
In Espanol, yes. Then there's Ian Clark, the one-time goaltending director of goaltending and now goaltending scout. And it is now readily apparent that Ian Clark is being phased out of the Vancouver Canucks organization and at the hand of Jim Rutherford, who's a former goaltender and has his own goaltending beliefs. I don't think they were particularly accustomed to the structure of a director of goaltending and all the power contained within that position when they arrived here. And when Ian Clark told them, look, I have some physical matters here that is going to prevent me from being on the ice and working with the goalies, they took that opportunity to replace him with his understudy, Marco Terranius, elevated from the Abbotsford club. Clark has a home in Florida, BC guy, but a home in Florida. And Dollywall reporting that he's been in town a couple of times this year to watch his kid play, and the Canucks did not ask him to work with the goalies. We had wondered a couple of times recently with Demko as he was having his struggles coming back from this injury. Like, even if Ian is incapable of getting on the ice, could he not just sit there at the bench and do some instruction alongside Demko, Terranius, and some shooters? Well, it doesn't sound like that's a particularly functional working environment either.
No,
in this Canucks organization.
And all these sorts of things always come to life, of course, when things are bad. So it's not terribly surprising to me that there's these sorts of stories surfacing. No one would care if Sergei Gonchar was here or not if they were winning. Same thing with Ian Clark. The goaltending has been good enough. It hasn't been world-saving like it's been in the past. I'm not prepared to say that Ian Clark's absence is gross malpractice just yet because it's been good. And ultimately, no one's dealt with the Popliteus injury. We know that. Would Ian Clark have any upper hand over anybody else in sort of helping to guide and restructure Thatcher Demko's play upon returning from said injury? So we'll see. It's one of those things that when the season is over and we have if the goaltending rises to the occasion, Thatcher Demko might get red hot here. He might find his game after finally getting into the groove and playing each and every night. And I think that Ian Clark angle kind of goes away. And the Gonchar thing, I mean, could he make the defense better? Maybe. But only so much better. I mean, we know what the resumes read of these.
Coaches coach, players play.
Yeah.
I heard the great football coach Nick Saban on a podcast this week saying, I can coach bad players.
Right.
Like, if you're bad, there's only so much I can do for you.
That's just it.
It may be psychological because I had never heard of a popliteus muscle until earlier this season when Thatcher edified us on it.
Mm-hmm.
I go for walks around my neighborhood, like 45 minutes, an hour plus. And I usually walk downhill in the home stretch from the hill at Dunbar there.
Mm-hmm.
I get like a shooting pain behind my left knee. It feels like a muscle pain. I know we have some doctors to listen, Dr. Rami and others. I wonder if that's a popliteus. Like I sit there, and in the final 5-10 minutes of my walk, as this pain is shooting through the back of my left knee, I go, if that's the popliteus, boy, I sympathize. Thatcher.
I've had knee pain the last 48 hours, right behind my knee. I was this close to being.
Is that a popliteus?
I think I've heard I
would like to know from Vancouver physios if there has been a wave of people reporting
like the norovirus.
Offices going,
popliteus.
I got something behind my knee. Do you think it's a popliteus? And of course, the non-hockey physios are like, "Wow, I'm impressed. You know the name of that muscle. So obscure, so rare."
I don't think it's a popliteus. I think there's a lot of ligaments that wrap
There's
around
a
the
lot
back of the knee.
Yeah, there's a knee's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
This from Noah Strang, who does great work for the Daily Hive and Offside. We love that AFP analytics company.
Mm-hmm.
And we love them because they're pretty darn good with regards to, if not predicting to the year-end dollar. It is difficult to do that, particularly when you get the emotions and the fear of loss of owners and GMs in the National Hockey League and free agency. But they're pretty good in terms of frameworks of, okay, this guy is tracking towards this many years and this much money. So they came out with their midseason projections, not predictions, on contracts for this summer. Did you see this?
No.
Okay, so you're going in cold.
Yeah.
I think one is light. I think one is heavy. And I think maybe two are heavy, but let me just throw this at you.
Okay.
They got Besser at 7 by 876.
7 years, 876.
8.76 million per.
It's a little heavy.
Yeah. They got Lankinen 2 by 3.18.
Yeah, a little light, I would think. I would think he's getting 4 minimum.
You think he's getting 4? Oh, wow. Okay.
For
Oh, 4 million or
Yes,
4 years?
4 million.
Okay, 4 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
and maybe 3 years.
Oh, I think he's getting 3 years. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what he does in the second half. If he goes pop here, maybe not. But
hey, some people are
and the
suggesting
goaltending market is weird too, right? Like some years it's robust, some years it's Lankinen found out this past year. It's not quite as bullish.
There's some people that think he gets a contract that begins with 5. 5 point something.
I think if there's enough desperation in the crease, that's possible. Pius Suter, 4 by 3.8. I'm not going near that.
I don't think anyone is. Pius Suter has defied logic. He should not have been available when he was for the Vancouver Canucks.
He was a very tidy signing as a third-line center who could score you some goals and also a smart hockey player.
And had great underlying stats. Like, why nobody said, hey, we'll take a flyer for the exact same price the Canucks did. Now, maybe he was picky, but that certainly wasn't the story at the time. Like, did somebody else not offer what he ultimately signed with the Canucks?
Yeah. Now, that said, Pius Suter has not scored since December 6th.
No, for sure. But he's doing other good things.
Like, he does not have a point in the month of January.
No, that's not great either.
He's 10 games, no points in January. He's pointless in 13, Blake.
And that's starting to wear out if he's playing in the top 6.
Well,
as he is right now.
Absolutely, because you've been a goal short here, a goal short there. I mean, this guy was contributing early in the season. If he was now, perhaps you have a couple of extra points to show for your last.
And playing down on the third line, more of an excuse, but now he's
6 weeks.
He's getting prime real estate right now.
Let's get to our menu, brought to you by Greta. And tonight, the big party at Greta, 50 West Cordova, a Canucks Army watch party. It's presented by Fountain Tire. We'll be raising money for One Broken Bike, our charitable partner. Vancouver, Edmonton, rivalry night, exciting giveaways. We got tickets to the March 5th game against Anaheim. We got signed memorabilia. We have jerseys to be won. Doors at 5. Puck drop is 6. You get your tickets at nationgear.ca. A 4-person VIP package includes entry into the event, a Greta Smash Burger, a beverage, plus a game card for the amazing arcade that encircles the bar. I mean, I'm going to be there, but you probably don't want to talk to me. You may want to meet the man behind the glass, 4-time Juno Award winner and 1-time world log rolling champion. And we're not bullshitting here. Mike Rogerson has provided photographic evidence as well as a pretty detailed backstory to winning the world log rolling championship at age 16. He was a prodigy.
Ask him his favorite log to roll. Is it fir? Is it a cedar? Like what wood feels best underneath the feet?
Yeah, what's the tackiest?
It's a red cedar. It's a red cedar.
It's
Hands
always
down.
Always got to
cedar?
be red cedar.
Is that the only log that is used in log rolling, or are there
100%.
It sheds the water a little bit.
Talk to me tonight. I'll be at the game.
So anyways,
Fur's so slippery.
traveled the world at 16, 17, 18, putting on log rolling demonstrations for vast audiences. In fact, he joked he made more money then than he makes now.
And if it wasn't for his
We don't pay.
terrible cedar allergy, he may be the world champion at this time. It's in the 30 for 30. ESPN's coming out with it.
Yeah, no, he because at 18, was it 18 you just walked away?
Allergic to Success is the name of the documentary.
17.
At 17, he just said, I'm done.
Yeah. Too many concussions?
Wipe the sawdust in my hands and hit the road.
We'll see you at Greta tonight. Time now for a Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365, Secure Some Price partner. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to take the bait. I expect the Oilers to come out flying. Big score to settle and from their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But backup goalie, no Connor McDavid. I'm sure this game has the Canucks' attention, as it should after the loss to Buffalo and Talkin's disappointment. So I'm going with the upset here because I get some value with the Canucks at plus 165.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm calling it audible. I was going to change something. I was going to do something else. But what we were just talking about has flipped me over to Pius Suter. Anytime goal scorer. Plus 425.
You're a crazy man.
I am.
Open account with
Blake,
Bet365.
Crazy man price.
365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Patrick Johnston coming up next. Historic Wall Center.
There are several glories to driving a 100% electric vehicle. I'll give you one of them. Driving past any gas station, anywhere, anytime. Your heart flutters, knowing you don't even remember the routine. How does it work? Where do you go? What do you... And you get that joy with the BZ4X from your Pacific Toyota dealer. Stop by, take one for a test drive. The other joy you'll get, the pep, the feel of driving a vehicle with that much energy. Honestly, hold on to your hats. And thirdly, the joy of the HOV lane, especially if you're living out that direction. Oh my goodness. Jump into the HOV lane, save yourself tens of minutes every single day in your commute. So my advice to you, find your nearest Pacific Toyota dealer today. Jump behind the wheel of one, as I have myself. See the fabulous cockpit. And you can get up to $12,500 in rebates and incentives right now. You can finance at 2024 from 0.19%. That's 0.19% APR for 36 months. Go check it out at your local Pacific Toyota dealer.
Patrick Johnson chronicles the Vancouver Canucks for the province and PostMedia, and he joins us on Thursdays. We will start you with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Would tonight, Patrick, be a statement win for the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, man. Oh, Tuesday night, my dear colleague Ben Kuzma described it as a danger game. And I had to laugh. I was like, yes, aren't they all danger? I mean, yes, they are, Ben. They're all danger games. This is a statement game. Yes, they're all statement games.
This is statement with a wink.
Yeah.
Statement. Get it? They did it. They did a statement.
Oh. That's the sound of everybody involved with the Vancouver Canucks at this point.
I think there is one person on the planet who thought that statement was a good idea, and I think he happens to own the Edmonton Oilers and the Rexall chain of drugstores.
Here's my question. I'm sorry, guys. It was kind of one of those times. I ran out of time. You end up day carries on. The kids are there, and you get tired. But I was so tempted to write a column saying, "Did Connor McDavid die?"
Right.
3.
Yes.
We support him through this process. You're what? Sitting out 3 games.
Yeah.
Like, what? Knowing where to sit during the game when you're not on the ice? Like, what are we even talking about?
The PTSD of the hold?
Oh, man.
Anyway, is there jam in this game, do you think?
Oh.
Or do you think that it's muted with the 2 offenders out?
I mean, I don't know.
There's juice. There's jam. How could there not be?
Juice. There'll be some juice. There'll be someone saying, Connor McDavid, you meanie. Or, sorry, Connor Garland, you meanie. You held on to him.
Connor v. Connor violence.
I know J-Pat's worried.
Of...
fair enough. And I think that's partly his old, J-Pat comes out of the old dub. And so it's just wired in that something crazy is going to happen. I just don't think we're in that league anymore. I just don't. I mean, people ripped on Elias Pettersson a little bit for his reaction, but I was like, you know what? Most of the guys react that way. It was a surprise. Miller saw it, and a couple of people saw it. I mean, it was a surprise to me that anything actually did happen. Draisaitl getting mad at Garland, I guess, but I don't even know what Draisaitl was mad about. What was he actually mad about?
He's always
very aggrieved. All the time.
Leon, why so pissy? I mean, a prophetic question from Jim Matheson several years ago when they were doing all that losing. I don't know about you, but like Blake and I were really surprised McDavid got 3 games. Like we thought 1-1, 1-2, 2-2, even 2-3, but like that he got the same number of games as Myers.
Well, then he got to 3. Again, 2 and 3 I would have understood.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they would both get 2. I figured they'd get 1 for the fact that it was a match penalty with 2 seconds left, so that you sit out a game, because that's the point. And then another because, well, it's Thursday and it would be nice to cool things. I don't know. But I don't think there was going to be any retribution. I figured they'd be like, oh, it's the second game because you would have gotten an extra game anyway, So it's 2 games, boom. So the 3 for both of them surprised me. Although I guess I can't even remember. I didn't actually bother. Is Myers actually a repeat offender under the rules? I'm not even.
Yeah,
sure.
You graduate your offenses eventually. I don't know if he.
So that part did throw me off a little bit. But, both of them cross-checked another guy in the head, and that's not what you want. So here we are.
In the wins and loss column, is it possible this team beats the Oilers twice in 5 days, but in the middle loses to one of the worst teams in the entire league? Is that quintessentially this team?
Yeah, and then win 2 big wins 2 Saturdays in a row with 2 horrendous games in between.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we thought last year was real, and I think we had reasons to think last year was real. And you come into the season thinking there was going to be progression from that, even if there was turnover in the roster. But the totality of the season has told us the way they have played against the Buffalo Sabres is much closer to who this team is than the nights where they've managed to put it all together and beat some of the league's best teams. Like it's the NHL, that happens. One person I have a lot of time for, who has worked in the league for a long time, says 75% of hockey is luck, and that drives you crazy. It's an exhausting situation with this team right now. The sort of night to night, you don't know what they're going to be. You mostly should expect that they're not going to be very good, because that's been the trend. I mean, the J-Pat stat on them needing to be 17-0 to come even close to last year's winning record is abysmal at home. I mean, I think it's stunning. Last year was a great record. The fact that they have it is mind-blowing how poor they've been, especially at home. And to me, that is what we need to recognize about this team, and that's why they need to start making changes, I think.
Back-to-back wins anywhere.
Speaking,
I
know.
Crawl before you walk here. Like, honestly.
Speaking of changes, what is your understanding with where things stand right now with JT Miller and the shooters?
Yeah, I mean, everyone seems to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Everyone seems to agree behind the scenes that it needs to happen, that change is necessary for the good of everybody. My impression certainly is that I know that the Hurricanes were kind of mooted out there, and certainly they've made inquiries. I think it comes down to really the prices are not great, and what with the Rangers, for instance, it's about retention. What retention means, whether that's on a Miller contract or a Hedl contract, I don't know. But if you start thinking about those terms, like there is some kind of sweetening in the deal that has to happen. And so if you're looking at, say, the Hurricanes and you're flipping a couple guys, well, they will need something back. That's not just Miller, because they have to look at their roster and say, we need to. We're already making change. They're missing Jesper Fast. They're already making alterations, or they're trying to add someone to that spot that they've lost there. If you move, say, Kotkaniemi and Roslovic, two depth forwards, you're going to need a depth forward. Like, there's just enough sort of bits and pieces there that you're like, okay, but really none of these offers are that exciting. It's sort of mediocre forwards coming back. And, what's the sweetener the Canucks can offer to make it palatable to the other team, even though they are getting a JT Miller that probably is going to be a pretty good player for them, although he hasn't been playing that well here. You think that the change is going to make him better. I mean, the team that's trading for him surely is expecting a player that will benefit from a new home, right? They're not trading for a guy that's been playing as poorly as he has been. They're trading for a player that they believe will flip the switch once he arrives. But they also know that that's the Canucks' problem right now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. If the offers are no good, do you subscribe to the theory that Canucks start showing life here? JT and Elias are both going. There is no trade by the deadline, and maybe even no trade in the summer. But start with the deadline. Do you believe in the theory that if the Canucks get on a heater here with JT and Elias,
there's the
going,
flaw in the theory. The Canucks get on a heater here.
Understandable, but we have said it many times. Most every team in the NHL is going to get on a hot streak at some point this season. The law of averages is, especially with this talent, that the Vancouver Canucks at some point here are going to rip off 4 or 5 in a row or 7 and 8, something of that order. If that happens over the next month, Patrick, do you see a world where JT is here past the deadline?
Given what I've heard, I don't think so. I think that this is a move that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I found myself wondering that on Saturday night. I'm like, well, that was a pretty good game, and they all looked like they were pulling on the same rope and all that, and then Tuesday happened, and you're like, no.
Let me ask you this then, and we've asked a lot of people this question, and there's been different versions of the answers coming in. Like, will the Canucks lower their price and settle for less in this JT Miller trade, or is the price the price?
Or settle for futures,
well,
or accept some degree of future.
And when I say less, that I think settling for futures is settling for less, because this team does not want to take steps back.
Not even settling for futures, but futures as a component.
Yeah.
I think when things started first really kind of being clear that the trade was inevitable a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I want to say, I had someone say, no, they've accepted that this is a cents on the dollar situation, right? They are not just taking whatever they can get. They are still going to try and get something.
They'll be discerning to some degree, sure, but
but it's not like, oh, you'll give me a 7th round pick, let's go. Like, it's not that, but they know that they're not. They know that the sort of exciting package you would get in normal times, if there were not in the background a story that we still have very little understanding of, to be clear. I mean, we've heard lots of bits and pieces and rumors and ideas, but the actual what it all means. I mean, we're still in the midst. I mean, this is why writing history live is so hard. But yeah, like this is a situation where no, it's exactly that. Like you're making a deal, you're trying to get what you can get, you're trying to salvage the situation, but realistically, it's not something you're dealing from a position of strength.
So the backstory is the biggest impediment, though, rather than just the goals and assists.
I to be honest, I'm not sure about that. What I mean is that the Canucks have found themselves in this situation for reasons that we still don't quite fully understand. That's what I mean, and the fact, which does influence the overall negotiations because teams know that the Canucks kind of have to do this. They don't have much of a choice.
Because it's Patrick and we endeavor to be spicy at some point every week with that. Writing history live is so hard. That's your job, bro.
Yeah, but no,
first
we
draft
know this.
Of history, and
first
oftentimes
draft
it's rough, and I agree.
terrible.
You look back
this
sometimes
is why it's hard.
Go,
yeah.
Oh, the wine.
What do we actually know? Not much, Matthew.
Wine.
Not much.
I can't get over the media wine.
There'll be an Errol Morris documentary about this, and it'll be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. You know this better than us. We've spent a little time talking about coaching, not just Rick Tocchet and systems and messaging and all of that business. Yeah. And of course, Dad is very disappointed right now in his children. But also from the standpoint of veteran assistant Mike Yeo leaves. Okay, great story. And Yogi promoted, but first time NHL, bench assistant. Ian Clark and him being pushed to the side by Jim Rutherford. And, one of the sage and Tocchet and Foote and their taste for Redwood defensemen. One of the sages on this staff is Sergei Gonchar, one of the guy who's supposed to be a veteran, seen it all, done it all guy. Yeah. I just don't see him all that often, but you're closer to it and around the rink on practice days and whatnot. What is actually the Gonchar arrangement and contribution to this club as an assistant coach?
You're not wrong. I actually found myself thinking, wait, I haven't seen him in a while. And I dig through my memory. I'm sure we saw him before Christmas. Listen, when he was hired, there were a few different things they were going for. One, it's mid-season. It's hard to build out a staff anyway, but he's a guy that had built up a reputation as a smart player, he could done some coaching, had obviously had some experience there. They approached him, he was approached and said, listen, will you get involved? And he said, yeah, but could we talk about it being in a, maybe a different kind of role? And there's a reason why he is called the defensive development coach, and he's been called that since the beginning. And essentially the role is, I talked to him very early on, but essentially the role is he's here he's with the team, I should say, usually for a couple of weeks, often on the road. He's based in Dallas. He's got his kids and live there and are going to school and university, as I understand. And I think when he told me when he first had the job, it partly was so that he could be there for his daughter. She was starting university, and when he had been a player, a lot of the time he'd been away, and he wanted to be around and just be the dad that he could be with his kids in their 20s. And so that's it. The other thing too is that it's a job that exists because of modern technology, that he's able to provide feedback even when he's not there. Obviously you're interacting on your phone all the time, and so he's a guy that's sending notes and clips and what have you to the players that he's working with, and at least when we spoke, I haven't talked to him in a while, but the players would get back to him and they'd ask him, and you would get up in the morning and you could see whether I think they have a specific app that they're using, a coaching app that they're using, and you can see when things have been looked at, and he would realize that his players were looking at these things like in the morning right away. They'd get up and have their coffee and breakfast and whatever, and they were going over what his notes were from the night before. So he built a relationship. The other thing, of course, was at the time the Canucks had 3 Russians on the team. So, having a Russian-speaking coach from a cultural standpoint made sense. That was a smart thing to do. So you're right. I haven't seen him around, but I would expect we will see him again soon. I mean, obviously there's not a ton before the Four Nations starts, so will we see him? I don't know, but certainly he's a guy that's been around, and I mean, as I think I joked to you before, he's a guy that you tend to run in at the beverage station in the press box. He'll fill up he usually gets himself a tea, I think, before he heads back to the management box. So. Yeah,
well,
keep that throat clear.
That is very good
fresh.
Learnings in terms of attendance, in terms of apps, and in terms of beverage of choice.
Yeah,
that's
where to
why
find
we
him.
bring you on, Patrick.
Speaking of coaches, he's not one anymore. But what would Ian Clark think of 4 straight starts for Thatcher Demko? Is this and they're kind of
time to get him on a roll?
They're kind of hemmed in here because Lankin is not ready to go after being sick earlier in the week. But is there a risk here, you think?
A risk of injury, or what do you mean?
Yeah, just overextending him this early, 4 straight?
No, I mean, in the end, like, in theory, he's supposed to be basically, back to where he was, even though he had this weird injury with a muscle that doesn't matter to most of us. They need him to play. They need him to perform. He's a guy that he just needs to get in there and keep getting in there. It's the starting pitcher. He has a bad start, you throw him back in there, right? Like, it's just get him back in there, get him going. Tuesday was such an example to me of how he is not back to himself. They didn't lose because of the goalie, because the team itself failed in the third period, but you get a couple saves, and that's a win. He bails them out, and he has not been bailing them out. Kevin Lankinen has many nights bailed this team out, and we really haven't seen Demko do that this season at all. So, not that they
hasn't changed the game. Yeah,
you want him to change the game. That's exactly the way you put it. Yeah, that's exactly what you put it. Change the game. So, yeah, you get him in tonight against this red hot, this angry, furious, holding team, and he will undoubtedly rise to the challenge. At least that's what you hope.
All right.
Also, Kevin Lankinen, I briefly chatted with him. Noro went around everywhere. I briefly.
It's
apparently
everywhere.
you got it.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, I seem to have had not a terrible bout. Perhaps similar to what he had, but yeah, like I woke up in the.
No, but it's everywhere in the city.
It's everywhere.
Do you think it's the salad?
It's not. Yeah. Well, the culprit, the suspect at the time was the salad. I mean, it's a hand wash. It's a hand washing illness, guys. So I mean, in the end, it's surfaces and things like that. But there were, J-Pat didn't get sick. Chris Faber didn't get sick. Neither of them had salad. So anyway.
Good
anyway,
Yeah.
Anyway,
you try and work in a salad now, and look what you get for it.
And listen, normally the
You don't make
salads that
friends
they
with salad.
serve, normally the salads they have the medium meal at Rogers Arena is pretty good, and I'm a big fan of salad, and I'm not shy about that. And I can tell you, in the moment, eating that salad, I'm like, man, this is a disappointing salad. So whether it was the culprit or not, we don't know, but I like to say so because it's just underwhelmed.
Is it still an iceberg base on that salad?
Well, it depends. It depends on what they're making that night.
Oh,
say what you will, the
you
Appleinis.
sometimes get the butterhead
They do
or the
food
romaine.
well. They do food well, man. It was just a mediocre strawberry salad. It was a surprisingly weak salad. So anyway, Kevin
No
Lankinen,
berries in my salad. No.
Kevin Lankinen feeling a lot better. Feeling a lot better, but obviously probably wants another day or two to settle himself. So. Yeah,
I think we're going to put the salad clip on social.
I think so.
God. I don't know if it was the salad. Because the team eats something different. Like, they don't eat the same thing. So the point being was that it was, in all kinds of stuff. And, poor Mike, I was talking to poor Mike, team services director Mike Brown. Poor Mike Brown, mid-game, said he had to sprint out and find a toilet. And that was the end of everything.
Yeah.
They feed the team, and then the scraps.
Where are you on? Is it endives or endives?
Endives.
Where are you on those?
It was sporadically in a salad, sure.
Yeah.
The bitterness.
They have the sign there on the highway. Is it at Abbotsford or Chilliwack? I think it's Chilliwack.
Chilliwack.
Yeah.
It's heading east.
Right, exactly. What about, is it Radicchio?
Radicchio.
The
Nice.
purple? You like that?
Now we're talking.
A little bit of that. Mix in some of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Is Radicchio Rocket? Is that the one that's also called?
British people call it rocket.
And of course, you can't beat a
Really
arugula
exciting
with
finish to the
a
pod here.
very light oil.
Again,
and
this is the
vinegar.
one we're using. Join PJ for Salad Talk.
All right. Happy
Always a
dining
pleasure,
there.
fellas.
Oilers and vinegar tonight.
There we go.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So, Carson Price from the historic Wall Center. Jason Gregor is a longtime sports talk host in Edmonton, co-host of the Daily Face-Off podcast, and he joins us from Rogers Place in advance of Canucks-Oilers. How we doing? How's the city doing today, Jason?
Well, Matty, you know what? Hey, I'm hoping as I sit here watching the Oilers optional skate that we would have a Flames Canucks line brawl, coaches in the hallway fighting. Unfortunately, none of that's going to happen. And let's be honest, like what Connor Garland did was nothing bad. He held a guy. Like, you don't fight a guy because he held someone. Let's be real here. Now McDavid and Myers obviously both overreacted and they got their suspensions. And I really think the NHL, to be honest, at times it's like they want to do everything in their power to eliminate emotion from the game in the regular season. You could have given Myers and McDavid each a 1-game suspension, had them both on the ice tonight, and both fan bases and everybody around the NHL would be tuning in, even though we know there's a small chance of retribution. But it's the hype, man. Look at wrestling. It's all about the hype. Look at reality TV. It's all about hype and stuff. And heck, a president of the U.S. just spews out BS after BS, and people are like, oh, my God, tariffs, everything. But the NHL's like, God forbid if we have any emotion in the games.
Well, we just passed the anniversary of Torts versus Hartley, and you're right, we're not going to get a redux here tonight, and frankly, I would not like Coach Knobloch's chances. I don't think he wants that smoke. Answer me this. Your market was big mad earlier this week. Was that just a blip? Has it calmed down any, or are there people baying for blood tonight at Rogers Place?
I think I really don't think Twitter's a representation of the fan base. It's a vocal minority. It's a lot of complainers, sadly. I think most people were like, hey, you know what? Should it have been a holding call? Yes. Was he worthy of his suspension? Yes. Did Tyler Myers deserve a suspension? Yes. Most sane people, I think, realize all of it, right? Now, if you want to say, well, if they called the penalty, then he wouldn't have. Well, whatever. If it doesn't matter. Connor McDavid even said, hey, I can't react that way, right? He knows it. He crossed the line. It's fine. To me, the bigger issue here is fans in Vancouver who have Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson when he's on his game, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen again, the rate he's going, but when he plays well and Quinn Hughes is elite and McDavid's elite and Draisaitl's elite and Matthews and McKinnon, we go down the list, and these guys endure holds, hooks more than any other player because all the infraction, not all, 90% of penalties occur on the puck carrier. Well, who has the puck the most? The best players in the game. So who has to endure the most BS? The best players in the game. And if you're going to tell me that NHL players in 2025 have figured out a way to slow down McKinnon and McDavid legally, I want to see the video footage of it because I only pick those two because I think everybody would agree they're the two fastest, most explosive players with the puck on their stick in the league. Those two combined had 90 drawn penalties in 2022. They're on pace to have 47. And we both know, or all three of us know, that penalties actually go down in the second half. So that's going to be a 50% reduction to your two most dynamic players when the rest of the league is down 0.03% of penalties. So you're telling me they figured out how to defend the two best guys, but they take more penalties against the less skill. Like, make it make sense to me.
Well, let me ask you, was that an ongoing discussion in Edmonton, Jason, before Saturday's game?
Well,
have you guys spent time on that earlier in the year?
I talked about it, but I'll be honest, I've talked about it before the Garland hold because that's it's a minor holding penalty. I get it's at the end of the game and everything, but it's a smart play, right? Because you know the official. I've talked to so many NHL players. You know what they tell me? They're like, hey, I will slash a guy 5 times because I know only one of them is going to get called. They know it. So they're like, if I got to slash Quinn Hughes and I got to take a cheap shot on Pettersson or McDavid, I'll do it because 20% of the time I'm going to get called. And then, guys, even the best power play is only 30% of the time it's going to score. So you do the math. It's worth it every time to cheat the rule book because A, they don't enforce the damn thing, and B, when they do, it's only 25% of the time.
Well, and we talked about the strategy of a face-off there. If they do call that's at best a 30% chance win for the Oilers with JT Miller at 80% of the night that night, right? So it was good strategy from Garland for sure. The problem, I think, and I don't know why it dropped off a cliff, because since McDavid was a rookie, he's the league leader in penalties drawn. But you're right, it has gone down for this year and this year only. I mean, I don't have a theory as to why that would be, but I do know that I think, and this is not something to be solved, it's just the facts. Both Draisaitl and McDavid are very good at playing through the hooks, right? Like some other guys, like Pettersson, for instance, is lighter weight. He goes down easy. Not to because he's flopping. He's just a lighter weight guy that can't fight through the hooks. Draisaitl and McDavid are both beasts, and they get through those. And I think referees and linesmen see these infractions and are like, I'm not going to make the call. He still got the puck, and they just let it go. And I don't think it's a conscious decision sometimes, but if you don't see the guy wildly spun around or lose the puck because of a hook on the hands, I think they're just not going to call it sometimes.
Well, and I don't disagree with you, but we're saying that then, well, if you're big and strong, you're going to get that's your problem, and so you should lose your edges. Like, it doesn't, to me, if you have a rule book, just enforce the rule book. The rule book doesn't state if you're 220 pounds. This hook doesn't matter as much if you're 180, right? And to me, that's where it's going right now. And the NHL, this is not new, guys, though. This is like younger generation. Or I'm like, go research Mario Lemieux, who partially him leaving the NHL was he was so dissatisfied with the amount of clutching and grabbing, and he was a big man, that he'd had to endure. Brett Hall, who was never short of voicing his opinion, he came out. So this has been going on for years. And if you look at what's the most successful major sport in North America, it's the NFL, right? They're killing it in the U.S. It's a no-brainer. What have they done? They've changed the rules to ratchet up offense and protect the quarterback, which is the most important player in your team. Right?
They do have a controversy. They have a controversy the other way right now. Like people are crying.
But that to me is it's funny because if you actually look at roughing the passer penalties, Josh Allen has the highest percentage by a mile. Right? Patrick Mahomes is like 15th in the regular season. Now in the playoffs, sure, but then you got to go into time of possession and everything else, sure. And so people get sick of the Chiefs winning, right? People got sick of the Patriots, so they would look, you know what, that ball's inflated 1 extra pound. That's got to be why they're winning. Like, you'll come to anything that you want when you hate a team. And there's nothing wrong with hating the best teams because every other fan base wants to be them. But the NHL has historically, they put in a rule offsides that only eliminates goals, and they overreacted to the worst missed call ever and then went stupid on it. That's what the NHL does. And to me, Connor McDavid comes out on January 22nd and says, hey, just call the rule book. Well, great. But you know what? Connor McDavid's the biggest face of the game. If he really wants change, him and Quinn Hughes and Austin Matthews and McKinnon and go down the list of the top guys need to get together. They need to call their head of NHLPA and say, guys, enough's enough. Right? We want the rule book to be called, and they have power, but I don't think they have the mentality, because the problem is other fan bases here, McKinnon or McDavid says, oh, they're whiners. But what those fan bases don't understand is maybe they'll get the next McDavid or McKinnon in 15 years. But then if you said it was a complaint then, well, now you screwed yourself, right? That's the problem. If fans want it eliminated, they should, because eventually you're going to get a good player. The Canucks went years. They never had Quinn Hughes. Now they have him, and he's one of the top 3 defensemen in the world. It's not even a debate, right? And so actually I got the stat. He has the puck on his stick at 5-on-5 more than any player in the NHL by 18 minutes, guys. Yeah. Right? So he impacts the game. You should want the calls, if you're a Vancouver fan, you should want the rule book enforced because it's going to benefit your team, because right now you have one of the best players in the world at his position.
Hockey players just don't like rocking the boat.
They don't.
I got to ask you this because we've had a lot of fun with it, and I know you're plugged in that market. Whose idea was the statement?
Pardon, you cut out there, Matty. Sorry.
I said, whose idea was the statement?
Oh my God. That might. When I saw that, I was like, Oilers release statement. I was like, oh, they're going to come guns a-blazing. That might go down in history as the worst plan ever. And so I talked to a few people, and no one on record or even off the record wants to say it. But to me, this was an owner who's furious. Is like, we got to somehow get something out there. We got to do something. We just can't sit here and take it, guys. I'm like, well, then call Gary Bettman and send him a note, because that statement, it actually, things were dying down. And then this asinine statement comes out, and people are just like, even people who hadn't ripped on the Oilers are like, what the hell is that? Like, oh my God, it was embarrassing. I was like, what am I reading here? Yeah, that was not a good look by the organization.
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry. And unless it was trying to be meant at humor, like, hey, let's distract from McDavid's cross-check and put the headlights on us for the lamest statement of all time, then great.
If they wanted to support
I just want
him,
you
though,
to know, Jason, as you explain that to other markets, we here in Vancouver are here to help you through the process of all of that.
well, why didn't they start a process? Why didn't they appeal it? If they were so upset about it, why didn't they appeal it?
Well, hey guys, if we want to talk jokes in the NHL, the appeal process is the biggest joke going. So you could have filed an appeal on Monday, right? So his third game is going to be Saturday. There's no chance they hear that appeal by Friday. We all know it. Like, the appeal process in the NHL is, okay, how many games do you get? Okay, well, we'll hear the appeal process after the fact. Like, it's hilarious. If you're going to have an appeal process, it should be like Major League Baseball. You appeal it, and now you can keep playing until your appeal's heard, right? That's what it should be. And but no, that. You know what's funny? There's even
too much common sense there.
In minor hockey, there is a kid who got a 5-game suspension for saying something on the ice, and they appealed it. And so as they hear his appeal through Hockey Alberta, he keeps playing games. And I'm just like, we can't even do that at the NHL. Unbelievable.
Was there anything to it sounded ominous there for a few hours, but the whole notion that McDavid may not play ball with the NHL based on everything that's happened this week.
Yeah,
did you buy it?
Who put
Do you
that
buy
out
any?
No, the source that came out of that, unfortunately, has a history of saying things that aren't remotely true. And this is one of them. Okay. What do you mean he's not going to play ball? You're telling me that he's not going to stand up and do interviews at the Four Nations? McDavid, it's one of the few times you can get him really fired up and excited when he talks about the fact that for him, it's the first thought. And I know that Russia's not involved and, Germany's not in there. I get it. But it's still the best Canadians, the best Swedes, the best Finns, the best Americans, right? So you got a lot of the best guys. And yes, while other countries aren't in, this is kind of like a quarterfinal, semifinal. Not everybody gets into those, right? So that's the way I look at this. So no, he's very excited about that opportunity, as all the guys are. And I think everybody should be. I know it's not the Olympics yet because you don't have as many countries, but it's better than nothing, right? Like, if you have 6 teams, guys, in the Canada Cup that we watched for years, is suddenly only 4 teams so egregiously weaker? Like, give me a break. It's fine. And he's going to be there front and center.
There's no Canadian players on the Canucks, so the volume is down a little bit for Four Nations here in Vancouver. Is it pretty, are people in Edmonton excited about the Four Nations Cup? Because we don't really feel that yet here in Vancouver.
Well, you know what? Once it comes, yes. Like, when the rosters came out, there was talk and everything, and there was some frustration. I think rightfully so. How Zach Hyman's one of only 5 Canadians with 100 goals, yet he's not on the roster. And Sam Bennett has 1 goal since they announced the team. Like, give me a break. But anyway, most people here are excited because they just want to see, McKinnon and McDavid and Crosby and the Americans right now. The Americans have a good team, but I think Canadian pride will kick in here big time because, there's people suggesting that the U.S. is taking over hockey because they win the World Juniors. And I always like to calmly remind people, the World Juniors is a great tournament. It's awesome. It's young. Canada's 3 best players weren't in the tournament. Celebrini, Bedard, and Benson. Put them on Team Canada. You think they're better? Like, this is a stupid argument. So now we do have the best Canadians and the best Americans. And, biasly, I want to see them in a final, right? And I wish it was the old format of a best of 3, right? But hopefully we see them. But you can never count out the Swedes or the Finns in these tournaments, especially the Finns. I don't know if there's a country that punches above their weight class in those international tournaments better than Finland.
See, we want to see Sweden. We want to see Sweden versus the United States, because then it would be Miller versus Pettersson.
No, but that's one of the
whoa! Don't you
narratives.
guys in Vancouver? Aren't you guys having like a Royal Rumble for when the U.S. plays Sweden?
Yes,
Pettersson versus Miller. Like, aren't they going toe to toe at center ice? Because from outside the market, guys, it sounds like these two. I don't know. Like, they hate each other. And I'm kind of like, they've been teammates for 5 years. It can't be that bad, can it?
I just hope they go nose to nose on the opening face-off of that Sweden-USA game, and that is one of the draws of this tournament, is that you can project NHL storylines and narratives into this tournament. And it has been far too damn long since we've seen best on best. And so McKinnon with McDavid and all of that, I think is something that's going to resonate, as you say, when the tournament starts, if not beforehand. Okay, last question, Gregor, and it's a tough one here. Who threw the nachos?
Yeah, boys. Hey, good question. I've heard varying reports, man, and I really try to dig into the serious matters. But first of all, can I just say, whoever threw them, less than intelligent. Like, it's the dumbest. Like, there hadn't been a boatload of terrible. Like, there was no reason to throw it. Now, I had some people say, it was a Capitals fan. What? No, I don't. I even asked the security guys, and they're like, a guy. They did see who it was, and the person did get escorted out of the building. But they're lucky, because by the rule book, the play should have been whistled down. And in theory, the home team can get a delay of game penalty. Now, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but that is technically the rule. But as you guys know, what we started off earlier, the rule book's just a guideline for the NHL.
Right.
They don't really like to enforce it. It's just there as like, you know what? Hey, this is here, but you guys decide what you want on any given game, and we'll abide by it. So throwing nachos, I guess now that's okay in the middle of the play.
Man, y'all love throwing things on the ice in that city. I mean, first it was jerseys, now it's nachos. And, some hats get thrown on there, too, with the quality of players they have. Jason, great fun. Thanks for making time here today. Appreciate your insight into everything that's happened this week. Enjoy the game tonight, bud.
Hey, boys, always good to talk to you, man. Continued success, and let's hope there's some fireworks. I'm not expecting any, but God, it would be nice.
No, an emotional game. Like, there's nothing like Canadian rivalries in the NHL. They're a different pitch, a different tenor, and it's great to have this one back. I'd love to see a spirited game tonight.
Like Troy Stetcher, Connor Garland, center ice. Who doesn't want to see it? Are you kidding me? Two little banner roosters going at it. Be unreal.
Straw weight battle.
That's right. For the IBF Featherweight Championship of the world. Thanks, Jason.
See you, boys.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where if you've got your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sick Harrison Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sickhharrisonprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
I am so looking forward to season 3 of Full Swing, the Netflix reality series on the PGA Tour, particularly since the Abbotsford boys are going to feature this year. Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor are amongst the golfers featured. Series premieres February 25th. There's apparently a big episode on the President's Cup at Royal Montreal. And I'm betting the hilarity of Jessica Hadwin also appears in this series. We have told you before, but if you don't follow Adam's wife, Jessica, on social, you are truly missing out because she chronicles the family's life, and she does so in a most amusing way.
Did they? I don't watch the show. Did they get Taylor with the Canadian Open win?
Oh, yeah. That was last year.
They covered it well.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I mean, you go back to good content. He creates good content.
That was great content that day on the playoff green where Taylor finally broke the Canadian drought at the RBC Canadian Open. Of course, Adam was tackled.
And they chronicled that whole part of it too?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to go back and watch that. That sounds good.
Yeah. We have some new Vancouver Whitecaps FC targets from the Glass City account and some interesting names here. Matthew Hoppe was at one point the next big thing in American soccer, and Canadian international Jaden Nelson has 2 goals in 5 appearances for the Maple Leafs. So you tell me, what do you think? Give me the lowdown on these players.
Both are sort of recovery projects. Neither has been prolific as top-level pros. Top-level with an asterisk, you know what I mean? But both, as you say, had enough acclaim that they've seen time with their respective national teams, Nelson north of the border, Hoppe south. So there's something there. Can it be mined? And there's plenty of examples of early look players, and this is in every sport, but it's easy to pick out with regards to the Whitecaps. Like the Whitecaps let Sam Adekubi go. And then years later, we're like, actually, we'll take that player back. Derek Cornelius plays at Marseille now.
I was just going to say.
Theo Bair is back to being very much on Jesse Marsh's radar as an off the bench player for the national team. Like
also at Marseille and at Whitecaps, him and Adekube Academy guys. Right?
So, there's options for these players when they've become a little more learned. So
you see it in baseball all the time. In baseball, they call it post-hype prospects.
Yeah.
A good example on the free agent market here. Jurickson Profar, the outfielder with San Diego. He was at one point viewed as one of, if not the top prospect in all of baseball. When he came through here with Texas's minor league team to the Nat in the Northwest League, there was a lot of hype. It took him a number of years. Now he's a really good player, but it took him a number of years to realize that potential. Anyways, Brian White, Caps straight. First of all, Hoppe is what position?
Striker.
And Nelson is?
Winger.
Existing striker Brian White scored for the United States in a victory over Costa Rica yesterday. He is the oldest debutant scorer in American male soccer history.
Yeah, almost 29. And nice goal, cutting across the top of the box, and he goes back far side past the keeper along the ground. A nice goal. And it bodes well for the Whitecaps, who will need him to be he had a good year last year for sure. I think they need him to be great this year.
They need him to be scintillating like he was the previous year. The other thing is, boy, he looks big. I mean, I know he's a big, stocky, sort of power post-up style striker, but man, did he look
well, it's good.
Stocky yesterday.
He's storing energy for the season, perhaps.
Yeah.
By the way, Theo at Auxerre. It's Bombito and Cornelius said.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Yeah. Theo Bair.
But you had the league right, at least.
Not at Marseille. There's no missions for tomorrow. We are in a golden era of Canadian quarterbacks. Of course, Nathan Rourke here. We've talked about how he and Trey Ford, the Edmonton quarterback, should they both start the season opener here at BC Place in June, would be the first meeting of Canadian starting quarterbacks in the CFL since 1968. Of course, we've chronicled the story of Curtis Rourke, Nathan's younger brother, at Indiana University, led the Hoosiers to the college football playoff this year. It's going to get drafted in the National Football League. And then there is this, Blake, history maker. Wilfrid Laurier quarterback Taylor Elgersma is the first Canadian university quarterback to participate in the prestigious Senior Bowl. This is the biggest college all-star game in Mobile, Alabama. It is typically littered with first-round picks, and Elgersma has gotten an invite. The Senior Bowl tweeted out that Canadian-born quarterback Mark Rippon, you may remember him, Super Bowl winner with Washington. He was the MVP of the 1986 Senior Bowl, but Mark was not trained in Canada. Mark was trained here in Washington State. Taylor has been Canadian trained. And he'll be joined by Stanford wide receiver Alec Iomanar, who is also going to be drafted this year, a fantastic pass-catching receiver from Stanford. There have been Canadian players at the Senior Bowl 6 years running. So we're doing pretty well here as a country in terms of producing pro football players. I mean, Neville Gallimore had an outstanding playoffs for the LA Rams, couple sacks, safeties. Best of luck to Elgersma, because that is quite a jump from Wilfrid Laurier to be playing against DBs who are going in the first round of the NFL draft. That'll be a test. We'll see how he does.
What do we know what the next year is for Curtis Rourke yet? Have we been told?
What do you mean?
Like, what's the plan?
He's declared he's going to the draft.
Yeah.
He, in fact, the CFL Scouting Bureau rankings went out yesterday, and he's there. I mean, I think as it stands right now, and we haven't had the combine, he hasn't worked out. He is, of course, coming off an injury because he played this year with an injury, played through it. So we'll see how the medicals check out.
What's your high end? Third round?
I think third right now might be pushing it a little bit. I would say more fourth.
Yeah.
But potential to move up.
Yeah.
And I suspect he's getting drafted one way or the other.
Is he undergoing a procedure? Or are they just rehabbing his knee?
I don't actually.
Like, is he going to miss the combine?
No, that's a great question in
Yeah.
terms of how much of the offseason work, what he's going to be. Yeah. So, torn ACL, his agent has already said that. Oh, yeah, he is undergoing surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be repairing that right knee. This is a story from earlier this month. So it is possible.
Combine early May?
March.
Early March?
Yeah. So I do not suspect he will.
No, that sounds...
and in fact, his availability for training camp may be compromised. Don't know that yet. He played on it, so it can't be sort of the worst case. Yeah,
no.
Exactly. Poll question, Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Wednesday. We ask you, would you support a team makeover around Quinn Hughes? We cited the early voting yesterday, so I won't have Blake guess. 84% of you said yes. I got to say, wow. I mean, I know it was after a terrible loss against Buffalo, and we had emotional recency bias, but I did not see it getting that high. Chuck, yes, would like to see them trade Miller and Besser and get players around Hughes' age. Justin, and we saw a lot of this amongst the no voters. Problem is, what if Hughes is fed up and leaves in unrestricted free agency? If you were to conduct a team makeover, starting at this deadline or starting with the JT Miller trade, it would have to be retool more than rebuild, because it would be about making sure you're competitive enough over the next 2 years to entice Quinn Hughes to re-sign.
Yeah, I think we left it open as to what that means to you.
Yep.
And if trading Miller and Besser satisfies most of your curiosities or most of your definitions on that poll question,
that is
then I think that's pretty easy for the Whitecaps, for the Canucks to accomplish here. Those two. Anything beyond those two,
got to get a center back, but I hear you.
Anything beyond those two gets a little bit dicey.
Yeah, I think so. And lastly, a great shout here from Andrew. Better question: would Aquilini support a team makeover? It's very fair to ask. I mean, for God's sakes, they went year after year with teams that clearly weren't good enough, and still he refused to rebuild, and he does get attached to players, as we know, once blocking around.
But if he knew that
trade.
Doing that would aid their ability to hold on to Quinn Hughes, I think that he could get on board.
Errors and omissions from yesterday's show. Calling one on myself here. I gave you some picks for the Farmers Insurance Open on our Bet365 Bets of the Day. I gave you in-tournament odds. I forgot that is a Wednesday to Saturday tournament. They changed that a few years ago. They don't want to compete with Championship Sunday in the NFL. So some of those odds yesterday for Matsuyama, for Lowry, and Jason
Those were
Day
live odds.
well, they weren't all on course, but others were on course, including Ludwig Oberg. So that affected everything there. Anything from the inbox?
No,
Anything
nothing reported. No.
Thank you, everybody, for spending some time joining, connecting with us. We appreciate that. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.